You laugh. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Monkey Mind Podcast, Chatter About the Chatter. Today's guest is all the way from Northern Ireland, and I am so excited to have you on because I know we kind of have come from the same experiences. I know we're going to be touching on nervous breakdowns, and I love the way that you reframed it by saying not a breakdown, a breakthrough. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more. I love that, Valerie. But before we start and find out things, I do need to do an intro song for you, and it's "Why Don't You Come On Over, Valerie." You hate
I'm
that
right
song
here.
yet?
No, I'm right here. I don't mind that one at all.
Oh, that's a good one. What was the other songs that you had growing up?
The other one growing up was Valerie Tells,
Oh,
and I that one I didn't like.
right.
That was not fun.
Good. Absolutely amazing. Honestly, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and the YouTube channel. Valerie, honestly, we always like to start off, but always gratitude. Thank you so much because you've got so much experience that you're going to be able to share with our listeners and anyone that enjoys the podcast that we're doing, because you've got a great story of how you became a NLP life coach specializing in resilience. And I think resilience, after the year that we've had, or the 18 months that the whole world's had, is going to be very much needed in these new times. So Valerie, just give us a little bit introduction about yourself, who you are.
Thank you for gratitude. Yes, back to you, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Valerie, I'm a cancer survivor from Antrim in Northern Ireland, and I live near Loch Ness, and I go and dip in Loch Ness occasionally. I've only just started that for the cold water swimming, which is, yes, and it's we pretend to swim, but more we take in little tow floats. So we actually just float about and talk to each other, which is great. Actually, for mental health and resilience is really good because it's good, so good for your immune system. When we talk about resilience and an NLP, we talk about anchoring and things like that. So some of my anchors obviously would be my family, but I'm looking to see who's listening because mostly it would be my dogs. When people say, "What's the thing that lights you up?" It would be my dogs, and then they go, "And your children?" I'm like, So of course they do. So a couple of years ago, as you rightly alluded to, had a nervous breakdown. I was working and the companies amalgamated, and the ethos of the new company wasn't what the ethos of the old company had been. And I worked in a position that was funded by the government, and their ethos changed too. And instead of working with people and trying to change hearts and minds, we were suddenly counting numbers. How many people did we have in the room? And were they of this kind and this kind? Was there 5 of each? And so they didn't really care about the quality of the program anymore. Mm-hmm. So if you have 5 of both communities it could be knitting or anything, that doesn't change what's going on for people in their lives or it can be very good for your mental health again, and you're building relationships, but it doesn't tackle the root issues. And that became really difficult for me, Cuddy, because the same for you in your life. You like people and you want to be working with people, yep. Not sitting in a room counting. Oh yes, on that program that was delivered, there was 5 of them and 5 of them, and it ran for 12 weeks and doing lovely graphs and lovely charts and lovely, doing. And I'm going, I'm not a statistician and I'm not an IT. This is not for me. And so it just became. And one of the really silly things was I had to drive past my old building every day. Twice a day, going to work and from work. And I couldn't come home to walk the dogs at lunchtime because I no longer worked 5 minutes down the road. I now work 20 minutes down the road. And 20 minutes is nothing for people commute. That's not my complaint. But I couldn't get home for 20 minutes, walk the dogs for 20 minutes and get back for 20 minutes. I'd have been in work all day, like all day if that was. And so it just became really, really difficult because there was too many negatives then.
Yep.
And now having learned resilience, there would be a lot of things I could do differently. I could change my route to work so that I wasn't driving past the building twice a day. But it was like misery loved company, and I like to stick those pins in my, and I love. There was part of that going, and there was part of meeting people in the kitchen and complaining every day that I didn't have time at lunchtime to go home and walk my dogs. that was all that was going on. That you talk about the monkey mind and the chatter.
The chatter.
That was oh man, that was I can't go home and see my dogs. I can't. My dogs are at home all day on their own. Other people are having to come in and look after them, and you know, that was, and I allowed that to happen. That's the beauty about resilience, is that you learn. I allowed that to happen, but at the time, I didn't know I had the power.
Yeah.
It was, they weren't my thoughts, they were just thoughts, and
Yeah.
therefore they controlled me rather than me realizing they were my thoughts and I had
Yes.
control over them.
Yes.
So that was, and it's amazing, and that's why I love resilience, because resilience is so simple. There are so many simple tools, and a lot of them our body already knows, but we A, don't listen to them, and B, we think, can't be that. I am so ill. I am so ill. It cannot be that easy. What she's telling me can't be right, because I'm so sick. It can't be that easy.
Honestly, Valerie, the thing is you've just said there is, look, we've all been down those dark paths, those dark spirals that we get stuck in these thought loops, and it's exhausting. And you're absolutely right about the monkey mind chat. That's the whole premise of the company and things like that. But yeah, it's those conversations, and then when somebody comes along and says, actually, if you just do this, you're like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand my problem, and I need you to know. And then it's like, actually, we are the ones that make our own lives the hardest, the most uncomfortable, and it's just exhausting, isn't it? And to come from a place of experience, it's so exhausting. And that story there, I'm sure, is going to resonate with so many people, Valerie. Absolutely fantastic. And why is it, and why did you, when you were going down that, not realize how simple it could have been? It's a good question.
Probably it is a good question, and it's very strange, because before my breakdown, I've already said I had ovarian cancer. I have a form of recurring ovarian cancer, so I have it. It's back at the minute, and so I'd done meditation. I had started meditation and things then. That was 5 years ago. So quite how I didn't catch it earlier, and part of me thinks I wasn't meant to. I was meant to go through what you would call the dark night of the soul. I was meant to get that ill so that I know what it's like, so that I can help people, so that it's not platitudes, and it's not me going, I know where you've been. There, pet, it'll be fine. It's actually, no, I do know where you've been, because I have been there.
Yeah.
And you're right about exhausting, because the whole turning point came for me, I can pin it down to the 5th of March. Prior to that, I had been meeting with people, and I've been saying about really bad tummy. Turns out it was the stress and everything else, and
Absolutely.
It was, you're not sleeping at night, so you're drinking coffee during the day, and then you're going to bed, and your mind starts racing, and that's part of the caffeine, and it's part of the chatter. Which as soon as you hit the bed, your head hits the pillow, you're exhausted, totally exhausted. Your head hits the pillow, and your mind goes, ping, now we're going to have a chat. And you're like, no. And you get to sleep at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and you've got to be up at 7 to go to work.
Yep.
Like, seriously. So one of my friends had recommended for me to go to the kinesiologist, and this girl had like a 6-week waiting list. She is that good. And then on the 5th of March, I started listening to Deepak Chopra's, one of his meditations, one of his 21-day freebies. Yep, they're fabulous. And it was about abundance. And I thought in my logical brain, when I get into this and I start, because you've got to sign up for it a couple of days beforehand, and then they open the app and stuff for you to start listening to it. I thought, I'm going to manifest, my abundance is going to be money, so I never have to go back to work. And when I was lying there and I was listening to Deepak, it was health. I just wanted to be healthy again. And I think when you let go of all those preconceptions that you have, that I need money so that I can get away from that job, and you let go of all that, and you open up to something else, the universe goes, okay, this is what you need. Yeah. So when I get into the car park and work, the kinesiologist team phoned and said, we have a cancellation for this afternoon. Would you like to come and see? And I was like, yes, please. Yes. Well, I wasn't that joyful, but I was like, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chopra. Thank you, Mr. Chopra.
Absolutely. Thank you, universe. Look at the abundance and be grateful for it. yes, I see this, and synchronicities and all the rest. It was fantastic. So on the Wednesday, the 7th, I went to the doctor, and that was my thing. I'm exhausted. I'm not sleeping at night. Well, the first thing the kinesiologist did was stop drinking the coffee. And actually, the other thing was tapping and having very powerful. Now, she didn't go through any of the negative language. She didn't teach me a whole routine. It was only the collarbones, and it was only my priority is my health. I am healthy and I am well, and that was what I was to tap on. But I also looked at her books, and she had like Louise Hayes and Wayne Dyer and so on. And I thought, right, I'm going to look these people up when I get home. And I started with one of Louise. Weeks and weeks later, I started with Louise Hayes. Mirror, telling myself I love myself, which was just cutting. You talk about laughing and joking, like that was really, it was cringe-worthy, and then it was silly, and now I walk past the mirror and go, right, pick up. It's a completely different relationship. But when I went to the doctor and I said, I'm exhausted, but I'd been to the kinesiologist and everything else, and I went, right, it's counterintuitive, but you need to exercise. Your head's cut. I can barely get out of bed. And he said, I know, but when you do get out of bed, you need to go and you need to exercise. Yeah. And then I thought, well, my biggest complaint is I haven't been able to walk the dogs during the daylight. So for the first 2 weeks, I was off cutting, and he put me off. He didn't even ask me, because I thought he was going to say, and I go, I'll maybe take a week. And he just went and putting me off for a month. And I could have cried with gratitude, because it just took that decision out of my hand, and I didn't have to think about it. And for the first 2 weeks, I did nothing but eat, sleep, mostly nearly all day, and walk the dogs. And that was all I did. And it was phenomenal change around, because it gave my body the time to reset and change, and to start to come back to what I would call alignment, come back to itself. And I was able to help myself. And that's then when I started looking at Louise Hayes, Wayne Dwyer, and all those guys, and started going. We had a local group that our health trust was running about stress awareness, and I went there, and so I'm sitting here playing with a little stone, because we talk about gratitude stones and stuff, and I know that's my wee green adventure. But sometimes then when I'm talking to people, I would still lift, because it's that tactile stuff about bringing me back to this, because I'm an energetic person, and I get all excited, and I start to, and so I lift something, because if I'm holding this and doing this, I'm more likely to come back to myself and breathe and just be in the moment. And so it was all of that. It was going and researching, because I think at that stage I went back to the internet and went, how do I make myself better? How do I be happy? All those sorts of word searches.
Yep.
And it took me off in beautiful places, especially like Annie, Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, Jay Shetty, all those kind of guru type people, and brought me to the learning and things, the place that I am now.
Yeah. And where you are now to where you were.
Oh, chalk and cheese.
Chalk
and cheese.
And I think a great question is, what would you say to you? How many years ago was that? Was that recent, or how many years ago?
No, that was 3 years ago. The breakdown was 3 years. Breakthrough was 3 years ago.
So if you could talk to yourself right over there, or I'll point that way for you on the camera, you're looking at that person 3 years ago, look to the person 3 years ago, what would you say?
It really is simple. Your thoughts are your thoughts, and you've got to practice this stuff that these guys teach you. The breathing and all that you think, it works. You've got to practice it. That's what I think. Because I think you get this stuff and you go, I can't, breathing. And I think that was the beautiful thing about the trauma-informed community resilience stuff.
Yep.
Was it taught me about the amygdala in your brain. I'll do this because it's the brain. This is your prefrontal cortex, and this is the back of your brain. And right in the middle of your brain is your amygdala. And the trauma-informed community resilience taught me all that bit of it, the science behind it. And then I went, I now get why that works. So
I don't know what that is. Explain that.
Okay, so this is why I love it. So this is your prefrontal cortex, which is this big bit of the brain here, and this is the back, then the cortex, and this is your brain stem running down your neck. So in here, this is all about the feeling. So this is the bit that runs down to your solar plexus, where we feel the stuff. and it comes up here into the limbic system.
That's the vagus nerve, right?
Yeah, yep, that runs up here, yeah. And this comes up in here to the amygdala, right? You've heard of the amygdala.
Yeah.
The limbic system. So, have you ever heard of anybody flipping their lid? When somebody really loses their temper or whatever, you go, boy, flipped his lid. That's that. That's where that comes from. The amygdala is triggered and it flips the lid. So your thinking brain, if you think of a computer, goes offline.
Brilliant.
And the amygdala is now in charge. The amygdala, unfortunately, beautiful system, very elegant system, but it's about 3,000 years old.
That's it.
And it hasn't matured to our surroundings, so it can get triggered. I watch tennis. I play every stroke with those boys. And my nervous system is through the roof.
Yeah.
Breathing. So what happens in this system is your amygdala triggers all that. So your breathing and your shallow top rapid breathing, your heart rate's up, your pupils have dilated. The only thing you can really hear is the thing you're listening for. So somebody's saying to you, "Connie, calm down, it's fine." You can't hear that.
Yeah.
You can't, because you're listening for whatever the threat is. You're looking for the threat. Your digestive system goes offline and you get a rush of blood and glucose to your arms and your legs because you're going to fight, or you're going to run away, you're going to freeze, or you're going to tend and befriend. So tend and befriend is one of the ones that people forget. They only think it's the three: the fight, flee, and freeze. Tend and befriend is a bit where we negotiate. So when we have possibly somebody who's been attacked, and they would say you'd no skin under your fingernails, so you didn't fight back, it's because they went, "If I give you my purse, will you not hurt me?"
Right.
And that's why then a lot of rape cases get dropped and things, because there's no physical evidence, because the female has tended and befriended. She has negotiated to try and protect herself.
Wow.
So this is the thing that the police and in America and here and prison services are being taught of this kind of stuff, because it's there, and you can't then use that against somebody, that they try to protect themselves that way rather than fighting. So that it's actually 4. It's not the 3. It's the 4. Tend and befriend. So we're in this. You know, we're ready to go. We're ready to fight. The amygdala then, through the polyvagus nerve, checks in with the solar plexus and goes, "Is she breathing?" And it's going, "No, she's not," because you're only breathing up here, which is why the breath work works. Because you take in lovely big deep breath, your diaphragm moves down, triggers the polyvagus nerve through the solar plexus, up the basal, into the amygdala. But that's why you need about 3, because to flip is almost instantaneous, but it takes a little bit longer for the parasympathetic nervous system to come online. So it takes about 3 big deep breaths for the amygdala to go back in and your thinking brain to come on. And that's where we would say, in this, you're responding to things, and in this, you're reacting.
Yeah.
And a reaction is never normally good. We want to be able to bring the thinking brain back online and respond.
Love that.
So that's why the breathing is such a big thing. But the trauma-informed bit would let us know that breathing doesn't always work first. So if we go back to the analogy of the lady being attacked, somebody has choked her, and I'm there and I'm going, "Just take a big deep breath," that's going to trigger her, because that'll take her back to the ability that she wasn't able to breathe in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would take her away from that and do something completely different with her to let her come back to normal, back into regulation. So whenever, just to finish that cycle, so that people that are listening know, what happens is when you've done that breathing, then you can yawn or sigh. Do you ever get in from work, a stressful situation? I used to get into the car and yawn and sigh the whole way home. It's called a release, because when you breathe, taking the big deep breath, the belly breath, and you've moved the diaphragm, your brain and everything else goes, "Oxygen, we like that. We haven't had that for 20 minutes, half an hour, all day, 8 hour days, whatever. Give me some more of that." And the quickest way is breathing, yawning, sighing, and laughing. which is why laughing yoga works so well,
Yeah,
and why for
absolutely.
people like you and me, it works beautifully.
Yeah.
Why we love a good giggle. So then the other thing that happens is your blood can rush back to your digestive system, which brings it on back online. So you can end up with wind or gurgly coming, depending on whether you eat when you're stressed or don't eat when you're stressed. You end up with either wind or gurgles.
Stress eater.
Me too. And the other thing that can happen is because you have the sugar in your muscles, you start to shake. So if you've ever noticed when somebody goes through a stressful situation, they maybe don't shake during it, but afterwards they start to, and people go, "Oh, look at me, I'm falling to pieces." No, you're not. It's called a release. And it might not even be as obvious as a shake, but if you've noticed people when sometimes they cross their legs and one foot's going, and that's the body getting rid of the sugar. And that's why I'm saying our bodies know what to do, but we
Wow.
misinterpret it, and all of that stuff is called release. We're releasing the
I
stress.
always thought that's fascinating, Valerie, because I thought when you crossed your legs over and your knee was popping, I thought that was a nerve thing.
But it is, but it's nerve as in it's what we call nervous. It's because you've been nervous, you've started to calm down, and so your body's trying to get rid of the sugar.
Ah, wow.
And a beautiful, beautiful way to do it if you know you've been through that situation. And there's things do send us for any goodness amounts of reasons. You know, a child runs out in front of the car and you're on the brakes and all the rest, and then afterwards you're like, and nothing happened and everybody's safe and you so 2 hands on the wall, here, and just push, and that gets rid of the sugar because you're using your body weight to push against the wall, and
Well,
that gets the sugar and stuff out of it, and it makes the release that little bit quicker.
Valerie, so going on, right, I'm going to ask you a question because I know I love sugar. So if I start pressing against the wall more, I release more of the sugar.
The sugar that has been released from your digestive system into. Now, Connie, if it was that easy,
we'd be all on the wall.
We would have it, yes. Apparently, sweating has nothing to do with releasing that sort of sugar. Trust me, I've tried.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. By the way, I really enjoyed that analogy, especially with the. I love that bit.
And there's a video. There's a video online. I can even send you to put in your comments under the podcast.
No, Valerie, you can take it. That was all on you.
But there's actually a gentleman does it online for children in a child friendly way. So if there's any parents on here that want somebody that can do it, and I can put that link in for you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely, that is amazing. I absolutely love that. And I know a lot of my teachings come from the chimp paradox, which is all about the different systems. And I remember reading a book about the vagus nerve, and I was thoroughly fascinated about the book on the vagus nerve and how it's all connected to the system, the sympathetic system, and that's why we both got into wild swimming. Cold therapy is what I do, but it's lovely.
Yeah.
Cold therapy.
And that would be why, because that's when you get into the water, you take that deep breath.
Yeah.
And so I've had people that are going and then go, and you're going, no. And that's the whole point of that, because then your endorphins and everything kick in to heal you, because you've had that shock. So they kick in to heal you, and that's why you have such a lovely glowing feeling afterwards. All the lovely endorphins running around your system.
Now, I know I mentioned I started doing it last November, and I enjoyed doing it through the winter. Now, you only started a month ago.
Yeah.
I've been finding it cold this summer. Every time I go in the sea, which I live in Leven, Scotland, every time I go in the sea in the summer, I'm cold because my body temperature is so warm before I go in the water. There's a big drop, and I'm like, oh my God, this is really cold. Whereas I was talking to somebody more of an expert than I am about cold therapy but when we go in the winter, it's like -2 degrees when I'm stood outside. When I get in the water's still +2 degrees.
Yeah.
So actually, it is when you get in the water. Yes, there's that cold shock, but it's actually nicer in the water than it is out. But I did enjoy doing the ice dipping and the benefits that I got for clarity. Because we were talking about the chatter, right? We talked about the chatter when you went, and I loved how you said not a nervous breakdown, but a nervous breakthrough. That we do find that because we get into those. I mean, our brain is just, and the stories that we create of why something's happening is we could be the best storytellers, right?
Oh, totally.
We
Totally.
honestly, I always remember some of my stories. I should have been a Roald Dahl. I genuinely, the amount of stories that I created for why I was going through what I was going through and nobody understood, um, was ludicrous. You look back, you're like, oh, that was, and I laugh about it now. I do. I laugh about. I love telling everybody about. Yeah, I've been nervous breakdowns. I've been there. That chatter. Now my chatter was exhausting, and I used to when I do lectures and I talk about the mental chatter. If you don't know what your monkey mind is, your monkey mind is at when you go to bed at night time, your head hits the pillow. That's when the floodgates open up and everything that's happened to you in the day, the week, the year, boom, goes. That's your monkey mind. That's the easiest way to explain your monkey mind.
Yeah.
So yours was just you couldn't get to see your dogs. You wanted to see your dogs, and it just kept going and going and going. And we kept to that story while other things were going on because of the work. The work was changing. We struggled with things,
yeah,
right?
and that wasn't the only thing. It was that I was driving past the same building twice a day. That these new employers were not the same as the old employers, and therefore they were horrible because they were changing things, but not for the better.
Yeah.
The funder had changed things, and they didn't know what they were doing. They were statisticians, and they didn't understand the work. And why had I bothered with all this training? And that I was no longer good enough at my job because I wasn't a statistician and I couldn't do what they were asking me. So it was back to that. I'm not good enough.
Comes back to we don't. Yeah.
Awful. So there was a lot more than just the dogs, but that was one of the ones that just, and you just telling yourself those negative things over and over and over again, you're just crippling. It's crippling.
And Valerie, this is one of the things that I have, and the amount of times I've told people that one of the best things you can do is get an elastic band. Get an elastic band, and I made the Monkey Mind snap bands for that, and the amount of people that once they get them, they're like, oh, this actually can change your life. I'm like, yep, we think it has to be this cataclysmic, absolute opening up of something. I'm like, nope, the snap band can stop your anxiety, can absolutely decrease your anxiety, because we know we create the anxiety ourselves. It's such a hard pill to swallow, especially with the way the world that is right now. Say, no, I have anxiety. No, it's not that you have anxiety. We've created. If you say have, you've took ownership of it. No, it's not yours. It's not yours. And it's trying to get this message out. And the snap bands are just the easiest thing. And the amount of people that once they bought them, like a month later, they're like, I can't believe a snap band has changed my life. It's unbelievable.
All you're doing with, to my mind, what you're doing with that is interrupting the flow of thought.
You're interrupting the flow of pattern.
That's like, for me, it's the correct, so everybody, it's back to that NLP thing that we all have different learning style.
Yep.
And so for some people, it'll work. I have a wee diagram here I've pulled out that I wanted to show you.
I love a diagram.
So this is our resilience zone. This is where we're meant to be all the time.
Right. Okay? Oh, I like that.
And in it, you're meant to be tired, calm, happy, worried, all within the zone. That is, life should happen within the zone. But then sometimes we get kicked out of the zone.
Yes, I love that.
Okay. Yeah. And what you're doing is when you're up here, you're snapping the band and it's bringing you back into this bit.
Brilliant.
That's why that works. And that's why the breathing works, because it interrupts this getting up here or going up here and going down there aren't bad in themselves. There are things we need to be aware of.
Of course, that's the whole, everything's got a positive intention. The monkey mind, it's there for a reason to keep you alive, yes.
That's the thing we talk about too, that I didn't say. We would normally say this is a guard dog, but I like the monkey thing because it's 3,000 years old. It's that, danger, I'm trying to tell you something. Yeah, so it's not a bad thing. Why this is bad is we get stuck up here, and that's what happened to me. It was driving down that road twice a day, up and down that road, and telling myself those stories over and over and over again until I got stuck up there.
Love it.
And that's why the snap band works, because you're breaking that train of thought. Brilliant. And that's the thing that gets me, is that this stuff is so simple. When you root it in the biology and you root it in the science, so simple, and yet people are still going, no, it can't be that easy. Like, I'm so sick, it can't be that easy. You're going,
Yes.
it really is.
And I think that's the premise of, I mean, I do harp on about meditation because I love meditation, everything that he's done for me. And it's funny because when I think is, if I didn't meditate, because I still have this, we still have days where absolutely there's sadness, there's horrible things in the world, there's things that make us angry and all those things. And I'm like, if I didn't meditate as much as I meditated, I don't know what it would be like. Because we still have days where I'm like, oh, that one's bothered me. Oh, that one's panged. That's definitely a trigger. And I'm like, all right, I'll go back to the breath. I'll just keep it nice and calm. It's not a problem. And I'm just like, what would I be like if I didn't meditate? And then I look at a lot of my friends around me that don't meditate. I'm like, I'd be like them.
And the science now is actually showing back to the little amygdala for the monks. They've done MRI scans on the monks' minds, on the monks' brains, and the people who meditate really, really small amygdalas, so they don't get triggered as, you know, they wouldn't go up as high or as low. So it's that thing of it is like a muscle. The more we exercise that, the more it is exercised, whereas the less it becomes atrophied, sort of, and it shrinks. And so we're not as triggered by things that other people, you know, and people would look at you and go, why does that annoy you? And I go, well, it does annoy me and it does upset me. It just doesn't take me to where you're going with it. You know, I don't need to become that impassioned or, I'm not going to lose my sense of self, my alignment. Because of that, you know.
Because you know what happens.
Totally.
Yeah, we know the other side. It's like we know that.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole again.
No, it's true. Oh, honestly, that's brilliant. Now, you are based in Northern Ireland, in Antrim.
Yep.
But in the world as it is today, we have Zoom, and you can talk to anybody all over the world and things like that. Is there any way any of our listeners, any of our viewers can contact you, Valerie, if they want to be able to get in contact with you? I will be putting it onto the YouTube link as well for everyone. But how do we find you, Valerie? The most important part is, what is your company, or what is it? What the name and everything, Valerie? Tell me.
Yep. So they can find me on my personal Facebook page, which is Valerie Crozier Nicholl. But my business name is Kaleidoscope. Ooh. And on Facebook, it's Kaleidoscope VCN, because there's a big clothing company called Kaleidoscope. But it's Kaleidoscope VCN. And the reason the logo is the word, but with a caterpillar, a chrysalis, and a butterfly. And it's that thing of where we started. We go into this then chrysalis. When my breakthrough was the chrysalis bit, where the caterpillar actually becomes, it's not that it just grows wings, it becomes like goo, and it's reinvented as a completely different entity and flies off with this beautiful butterfly. And that's not to belittle the caterpillar story. It's very, very important, or the butterfly wouldn't have happened. And the thing about a collection of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope. But also when we look through a kaleidoscope, it's all broken bits that make a beautiful pattern. And that was just, I took all my broken bits and put them back together and became a butterfly. So it's a kaleidoscope.
Valerie, that's gorgeous.
I know, isn't it lovely?
Took broken bits and made, beautiful, beautiful.
Put them in the new pattern. So Kaleidoscope VCN, and that's my website and everything, and the email is valerie@kaleidoscopevcn.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, do you work with mainly ladies or gentlemen, or is it anybody that wants to work with Valerie?
It's anybody that wants to work with Valerie. As you rightly alluded to earlier about the 16 months or whatever, 18 months that we've been through, I have worked with primary school children and everything this year.
Yeah.
We've had an issue with young people having just gone back to school, big school in September, and just started to make their new friends and their new groups within, and we closed. I'm not quite sure when Scotland and stuff, but we closed again on Boxing Day. So the kids finished 2 weeks before Christmas and didn't go back again until after Easter. Mm-hmm. And the kids were like, we don't know the people, we don't know our teachers, we don't know they had no strong friendship groups, so I was working with everything from primary school children right up to senior citizens this year, because again, senior citizens that maybe had health issues and were very, very nervous about coming back out and starting to socialize. That was really, that was, so sometimes it was me just going for a walk with them and a cup of tea and a chat just to get them out over the door. My preferred audience, just because it's me, are women over 40, over 45 who are stuck, who find themselves at that point where they're going, who am I?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my preferred client, but like I say, I've done everything from primary school up to senior citizens. There's no, and it may be the same Kelly, that somebody comes to me that we don't gel, and therefore I have other friends and I have other people like yourself that I would think actually you would relate better to and you would work better to, and so I would refer people on if it's somebody that, you know, I think actually, and I do at the top of my business page, I have pinned helpline numbers, so that if somebody doesn't feel they can speak to me or whatever, the Samaritans numbers and Lifeline numbers and all the rest are at the top of my business page.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. That's lovely, Valerie. It's you said your preferred client is ladies. It's weird. We resonate with certain people, and I totally understand that. And I have to say, I'll be very honest. I find it's very liberating that there is more ladies that are willing. They just have that internal, something's not right. I need to talk to someone about it. And believe it or not, my preferred client is gentlemen, but most of my clients are ladies. And it's like, I always want gentlemen to just talk about those things. And it's, we practice this avoidance. It comes down to avoidance is such a big part of everything that people go through, isn't it? They don't want to talk about things. They don't want to talk about emotions. They don't want to talk about depression and anxiety and these things, especially in gentlemen. So look, a fabulous cause that you're doing all the way up in Antrim in Northern Ireland. I love the fact you're specializing in resilience. And I think resilience is something that so many people need at this moment in time. I always need a little extra insight on resilience as well, because we go down our different learnings and different paths. Wayne Dwyer, big fan of Wayne Dwyer, and I know I want to get more into Wayne Dwyer. I know when you mentioned that message, that one of the biggest. Can you think of any one book that changed your when you went on your learning journey? Because I love the fact that you've been training and you've got your certificates and things like that. But is there one book that you were like, that's the book that really that's everything for me?
No, cutting. I'm sorry. I don't. I'm terrible. I don't have favorite movies. I don't have favorite songs. I don't have. I have got something out of every book I've read, and I've read everything from like Jay Shetty's Monk Mind, or the Mind of the Monks, whatever. Vishen Lakhiani's, Bob Proctor. So some of them are more business orientated. That would be, you know, Think and Grow Rich and Wattledy Wattles, those sorts of things. So I've read a whole wide spectrum of things, and I've always got something out of every one of them. And some of them, there was one Quantum Leap or something that everybody raved about, and I maybe because I'm more of a plodder. You know, that I get there in my own time. I'm a late blossomer. So this whole thing of having a quantum thought and making this great didn't really, but I still got things out of the book that worked for me. So the one I've read twice, the one I go back to, I don't have a favorite, but the one I was Psycho-Cybernetics.
Say that again.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Wow.
Because it is the one that tells you, more or less, you make it all up in your mind. So this was a guy who was a plastic surgeon, and people would come to him and he would fix their nose or whatever. And for one person, that was enough. And for the next person, it was like, no, I'm still, because they weren't changing the internal dialogue.
Yeah.
The external hadn't fitted what they seen in the mirror. And he has a whole book on that. So that's the one I've read. Out of all of these, I have read twice, because there are lots and lots of tools in it to help you try and change the dialogue that's going on in your own mind.
And that's the monkey mind. That dialogue can absolutely make you or break you.
Yeah.
100%. It can make you or break you. It really will. Honestly, Valerie, thank you so much. I'm a
Thank
big
you.
fan of Deepak Chopra. I loved his books. Pretty much every one that I've read so far, I'm like, oh, he's good. And do you know what I liked about Deepak was me calling him Deepak as if we're best friends. Me and Deepak, no, I should say Mr. Chopra, in all fairness. He was the head of the medical association he was a top doctor in America, and he walked away from the science and went to the meditation and the spirituality side, and he said you can get just as much help with that than you can taking a tablet. And that to me just resonated, especially as what we talk about on these podcasts, is how we can really change our lives without taking tablets and things like that. I think it's just monumental. And thank you so much for everything that you do for everybody. I'm sure there's going to be so many of your friends that's going to watch this and going to be like, Valerie, that is proper purpose. And that is amazing when you can go through what you've gone through and think, I need to start making sure that once people are ready to come and get that help that they need, they can with Valerie. So Valerie, why don't you come on over, Valerie? Thank you so much, Valerie.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure. It's always good fun and great time well spent with you, Cuddy.
It was. Isn't it nice having chatter about the chatter?
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's lovely. But I think for everybody, it's lovely to know we're not alone.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Well, honestly, thank you so much for being on another episode of Chatter About the Chatter. We are going to be live, well, not live on YouTube, but this is getting aired on YouTube. We're on Spotify. I'll give everybody the links. Make sure that you can listen in, like and subscribe, enjoy the channel, and enjoy the good vibes that we have. And don't forget, the goal of Monkey Mind Relaxation isn't to control your thoughts. It's not to let your thoughts control you. Coaching you on how to change your thoughts and calm your monkey mind. Big love from Cuddy. And I'm guessing there's big love from Valerie as well.
Big love.
Thank you very much, Valerie. And I shall be seeing you very, very shortly. All right, my love.
Thank you.
So much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.